So we'll do that's right.
All right, for our practice analysis.
Yep. All right, so we're back again, and we're going to go into some of the first practical components of growing your practice and putting the systems in. So this is a staple module, staple information that is absolutely critical to do this and do it right. And this is the content that we covered in that first call when I met you 2.5, 3 years ago, which was we need to do a practice analysis, because for us to be able to help you in your practice and when you helped me, and even when you started going through this whole process yourself, you gotta know where you are now, and the only way to know where you are now is to analyze your practice.
It's a map.
And you gotta look at the data, right?
Yeah.
I know for me, I talk to a lot of doctors each and every week for marketing and the consulting and things that I'm doing. I've got colleagues, and I'm always talking to new docs every single week. Every day I probably talk to a new doc, and chiropractor, physical therapist, med, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. One of the common things I find is that most doctors are not using data decisions in practice, and they're not treating their practice like a business. They're going with a lot of gut, a lot of feeling, and that's important to have that. There's a lot of value in your gut feeling, but if you're making decisions solely based off how it makes you feel or how you perceive it or think about it, you're gonna screw yourself, and you're gonna make a lot of bad decisions. You gotta have data and metrics and systems to look at, so you can look at where you are now from a number standpoint, from data, and it's objective, it's not subjective. Just like when you're, if you're working with a patient, you do a subjective exam and you do an objective exam, because now you have two different metrics to measure the progress of that patient. Well, you need to do the same thing in practice. It's got to look right, feel right, smell right, but you also got to have some data and some objectivity, so then you know that if you're making progress, if you do something different, or if you make a change or you test something, you got to know if it's working. It
has to be measurable. So imagine NASA, the room in NASA, if they went with, well, we think this might happen, or we feel pretty good about this. Imagine trying to do this.
Absolutely.
So it's all math and physics.
Absolutely.
There's no feel.
It's a profound enlightening when you do a practice analysis on, and you're going to be watching this.
It's upsetting for most people.
It's usually really upsetting. And the beautiful thing is, if you do this right, before you add any systems, before you add any new hires, before you try to do anything else, very, very quickly you'll see that you're bleeding money probably, and that there's room for more revenue, more profit without adding anything new, without any extra overhead. If you do this right, you'll probably be making a significant amount of extra revenue and money.
It's substantial.
When we did this, it was November of 2015, I believe, when we did the practice analysis that first time. It might have been 2016, but anyway, the point is we did that practice analysis. At the time, my wife and I in practice, we were doing okay. We had a decent practice. We were about, I think, $400,000 a year in revenue, which was so we were doing about, I think we were $440,000 a year. So we were doing about $40,000 a month on average, which was pretty good. It's it's an average practice.
That's a perfect size to go to 2 million fast.
So and we thought we were doing a lot of things right. We had learned a lot of good things from people that. But anyway, we were doing what we thought was pretty good, but we were looking to integrate our practice, so that's where we ended up having that conversation. But I remember that first conversation we had. We did the practice analysis, and what did you say to me? You said if we do this right, it's going to pay for the consulting before we do anything else.
Yeah, the consulting should be free. If the profit can't pay for the consulting, you shouldn't be doing it.
And that's what we're trying to do too for you.
Yeah.
And
not for us, for anybody. You shouldn't hire anybody unless they're paid for themselves.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. If you're not, if it's not paying for itself, you shouldn't do it. Same with any services that you add to your practice, any centers, any type of marketing that you're doing, it should pay for itself. No brainer. Otherwise, obviously.
Yeah, saving money.
But
I think we even held off on your integration a little bit because we found so much money.
Yeah, and we use that money to fund the integration process.
Yeah, so if it's done right, if you choose to integrate, you can usually optimize a practice, and you can pull so much money out of it legally and ethically. There's always under the guise of what patients need. You're not ever just doing it for money, but it's always what patients need, based on that doctor's belief or value system. And there's enough money there that the integration should pay for itself.
Yeah, and I think the craziest part is we were already doing a lot of the things already. We just weren't paying ourselves for it. We were doing work for free, and we figured out we should have been coding things different and billing things different, or charging more for certain services. And as a result, That next month after that first phone call, we went from 40,000 a month to 70,000 a month in,
That was fast.
in 1 month, just from
It was fast.
making a couple small changes before we added any new staff, any new services. We didn't integrate, I think, for another 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
But
Few months
instantly, so make sure you got your pen and paper out and you're taking notes. There's probably going to be a worksheet that you can use below to go in and do this. We're going to create that content, but so let's go ahead.
The math as well.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and we're going to dive right in. So I'm going to have Dr. Todd go through practice analysis and what you need to look for. So take it away.
Yeah, and again, one of the key points to this is not that it's not important about how you feel, but if you don't understand the math or know how to do the math the right way in the practice, or how to interpret the math is probably even a better way to say that, then it's going to be a bumpy road.
Yeah.
So the purpose of that is to help grow the practice with a guarantee. And the way that you get a guarantee is, all of you know right now, if you bill a CPT code or an adjustment, you know the insurance company's going to pay you. Under the assumption it's always necessary. So if you bill the code, you'll be paid. So just a really simple example is, if you see 10 people a day and all you're doing is adjusting them, and you bill muscle stim, then you're going to have 10 people a day times $10 to $12, right? Which means at the end of the day, you've made a minimum of $100. And if it's necessary, the insurance covers it, the CPT code is there, you document and bill it, that's a guarantee.
Yeah.
Right? So all these guarantees are done off of math, and that's how you add a service center with that in mind. So with statistics, what you really want to measure are going to be, or just a few of the ones you want to measure, are your patient visit average, your case average, your conversions. Yeah, your conversions, your new patients is what you're going to want. Cost of a new patient to stay, and then not just a lead. A lot of times places will give you leads, and leads are great, but if they're not staying for care, it doesn't matter.
So just to kind of chime in, what we were doing with new patient marketing, and then when we were working with you, it's like, oh, we got 20 new patients that came in this month, but the reality is if you factor all those 20 new patients into your metrics, it's going to throw your numbers off. So what we had to do is we had to say, all right, it's the patients that stay at least 3 visits, right? Because we're not even really profitable after the first 2. So if we factor them into the math, it's going to throw them off. So what we did is we set that metric of 3 visits or 4 visits they had to come in for them.
Or fall off rates. You set up at a fall off rate.
Yeah.
So your patient visit average, if you don't know, is going to be the amount of times that typically a patient comes to you for care. So if you took your total new patients and divided that to your total visits, that gives you an estimated average on how many times patients return back for care. And typically in chiropractic or physical therapy, rehabilitation, it's multiple visits are needed.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily an amount that's good or bad. Is probably the next question is, what should that be, right? As a rule of thumb, I believe the Medicare statistic is Medicare and Blue Cross. And again, nobody cares what I say. What matters is what the payers say that you're contracted with. So it's maybe 25 visits, 20 to 25 visits within, say, a 90-day period is a normal expectation for most carriers or for Medicare, any way that they feel is reasonable in the physical therapy world as well as the chiropractic world. Again, I'm not going to comment as to whether that's good, bad, or healthy, but that's whatever it is, it is. And then you have whatever you collect per visit times the number of visits that person comes, and that's what a case average is, or that's basically what every new patient is worth to you.
Yeah.
So for ease of conversation, if you run a marketing event and get 10 people and a patient's worth $1,000, you made $10,000, and if that event costs you $9,000, that's bad.
That's not good. But at least you're still profitable to some degree, right?
Sure, yeah. At the very least you want to break even, but you can't eat breaking even, and you're definitely not going to get to where you want to be with this growth. So ideally you take what your marketing costs are, right, and you divide the number of responses or leads and the number of patients that actually started care, and that's what your conversions are for that marketing event, and that's how you'd set a budget. So just to make this really simple, let's say you find out that a new patient, by doing that math, a new patient costs $100.
Yeah.
That means that if you want to see 10 new patients a month, right, more than what you're seeing, we need to be able to spend $100 times the number of people that you want per month. And it's shocking how many doctors have no idea.
Yeah.
Like they'll say, we'd like to see 20 more new patients a month and we're willing to spend $1,000. Well, if each one costs $500, that's a problem. Yeah, you're going to see 2, not 20.
Yeah, you're not going to meet those numbers.
Yeah, that's a problem. So that's how you actually create a budget, and then make sure, again, by doing that math on a regular basis, that not only is the budget accurate, but it's working.
Yeah.
And by doing that math, that's a guarantee, because the math is real. The numbers are real. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you believe. The math is real. It's right. It's going to be consistent. and that's what's happening with the practice. It's how we grow it.
Yeah.
So then we look at the visits, and you optimize that growth based on how many times patients come, what was necessary, did they drop off, did they not show up, did you release them,
Yeah.
what is it? And again, it's the interpretation of that data. We can get into that goes much deeper. But you have to first understand, which we covered, and we can cover again or cover with a notebook page with walking through it in a PowerPoint, how to find out what a new patient costs you. And again, if you don't know, it's what you spend on marketing divided by the amount of new patients. And then to really be specific, some people inevitably are going to say at home right now, well, I don't spend anything, and we see 20 a month. Well, then a new patient costs you 0 because a certain amount of patients are going to find you in the practice organically or by referral or whatever that may be. But you probably still have a web page you're paying for, whether it's $60 a year or a month. You're paying for something. If you have a web page, unless you have magic beans somewhere, you're paying for it.
Yeah.
That used to be a phone in the yellow pages, right? But you're expending money somewhere, so then be honest about what it is. And if it's only a website page and it's not maintained, then that's great. But that's the dollar value that it is. If there's somebody that helps ask for referrals or nurtures and it's a staff member, the cost of that staff member is your marketing budget.
Yeah.
You may not realize it, but that's what it is. Unless she's there voluntarily or for free, or he, you're paying for it.
Cost per acquisition.
Yeah, so take those costs. If those costs are 0, they're 0, but that means all you're getting is organic traffic, and it's pretty hard to get to 500, 600, 700 visits a week or $5, $10, $15 million a year on organic traffic.
Yeah, you can't.
Unless you're a hospital.
Something we talk a lot about with the marketing side of working with doctors and practices is a lot of them they're the referral-based practice. They don't need marketing. Well, that's great if you want to stay where you're at. If you want to grow, if you want to automate, if you want to put systems in place, if you want to be able to open up another clinic, you're not going to be able to do that off referrals, at least not for long. Especially if someone else moves into your market. If someone comes into your market and they are marketing, you're going to lose your market to that competition, right?
It's just you're not going to grow. You're going to stay exactly where you are. You're maintaining. There's nothing wrong with maintaining, but
if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. What's the expression? Movement is life. Nothing that stays still lives.
Yeah, I like if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
So
same thing.
Same idea. So real quick, so those numbers can get kind of confusing, and I know that there's going to create some questions, and this is what I remember going through this process is, patient visit average, right? So it's how many visits on average is each patient coming in. Well, you take your total visits divided by your total amount of new patients that month, and that's going to give you a number that is measurable. Even though it's not going to be exact, it's not going to be perfect, because you're going to have some practices have wellness patients, or they have continuity patients that come in maybe once a month or once a week. You're still getting an average number, right? But it's a measurable number that we can use to plot a data point, and then we can do it again month after month if we need to see if we're growing. Right?
Exactly. And the goal is not necessarily to get patients to come more often. So that's not necessarily what the goal is. And again, there's not a right or wrong answer. It is what it is. But let's say the average patient, just for ease of conversation, comes 12 times. And you have other patients that are coming 4 times. Well, what we want to do is optimize. Well, why do they come 4 times and fall out of the practice?
Yeah.
What do we have to do, or what system needs to be in place to capture those people and put them back in? So if you get $100 a visit, or $50 a visit, or $1 a visit, anybody that's not coming now that you didn't cure, resolve, or release is lost revenue.
Yeah.
And lost in the practice. We want to close that gap.
Yeah, so the goal is to figure out what your fall off is, and then what you do is you work backwards and you figure out where's the hole, where's the leak, right? And so you actually just did this. We were on a call. Dr. Todd was on a call with my wife just a little bit ago, going through these data, the data again and the numbers, because we're trying to figure out where are the patients falling off. Is it in the consultation? Is it at the recommendations? Is it at the check-in, the re-exam, the report of finding? Is it at 6th visit, 12th visit? Where are they falling off? And it's pretty easy to see a pattern over time. And it's important this is really important, right? So when you're factoring in new patients and then your total visits for, let's say it's a month, right, to get your monthly PVA, you want to make sure you're not factoring in those new patients that only came in once or twice, because again, those are going to throw your numbers off, right?
It drops your numbers depending on where they came from. I mean, it's still part of the number because it's dropping overall, but you could do an internal review and look at different patient files.
Well, here's an example, right? So let's say you had 100 visits for the month for easy math. You had 100 visits in the month, and then you had 10 new patients that month. So, and that's 10 leads that came into your office at least once, and you factor all those in. Now your PVA is 10. So that number could be reflected as a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what the standard is that you set. But if 2 of those patients only came in for 1 visit as a consult,
Yeah.
and there was no revenue or profit, technically you only had 8 new patients. So now you need to take in 8 into 100, and now you have a PVA that's more accurate.
Yeah, no,
Right.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
So that you want to make sure you're using the numbers
So you want your
correctly.
numbers to be accurate, and then the next question becomes, why did you lose those patients?
Exactly.
And then look at the patients, if the number's 10 or 50 or 20 million, whatever the visit average is, the next question after that should be, if you didn't release those patients, or there's not a medical note in the chart or even our system that says patients being released today,
Yeah.
why did they stop coming?
Exactly.
I mean, which, I'll give you the answer now, is your spoiler alert, you lost them.
Yeah, you lost it. There's a system or there's a hole that it isn't
Sure.
isn't tight, it isn't tuned.
If you didn't release them and then
communication's off.
schedule a follow-up and they're gone, you lost that patient.
That's a great point. And I just want to highlight it. If you're not actively discharging your patients, you should be. You need to actively discharge patients. It's a standard of care. But if patients if they're not being discharged but they're still not coming back, there's a hole. There's a communication
Yeah.
issue. There's a system. There's a protocol that's not in place that needs to be.
Or they're going somewhere else.
Exactly. So it's super important. So, all right. So what was the next thing? So you case average.
Case average is very important as well. So
Why is it important? This is I want to go down this rabbit hole because this is a good one. Case average.
Yeah.
Why is it?
So most doctors are unaware of the stuff we went through. A lot of doctors I speak to aren't, and I speak to different doctors that are, but they still don't understand how to interpret the data or optimize all these little data points that we just talked about along the way. They'll just do the math on something, or worse yet, there's software, practice software will just give them that number, but the number's not accurate. It's how the data is interpreted, which is really, really critical.
Yeah, we made that mistake with the software. So I use ChiroTouch, and I know that you use a couple different ones.
Yeah.
And most of the softwares now will crunch the numbers for you. But again, if they're factoring in all new patients, even though there's outliers in there, it's going to throw your math off.
It's
So just be
factoring in the
careful.
data entered.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're entering it in, all of a sudden it takes it and counts it, and you may not want it counted. So
Yeah.
that's critical.
Relevant numbers.
So your case average is going to be how much money is either generated through billing or through collections per patient that comes in the door, or per new patient. So that could be anywhere as low as $35, depending on what you do, or for a visit, patient visit average, or visit case average, I guess, depending on how you articulate it. Patient visit collection average, you'd
Yeah,
want.
so we call it a case average in
Yeah,
our office.
and a
So
case
case
average.
average is basically it's how much money or revenue or how much is a patient basically worth to you. So if you treat a patient, it's we're in business practices or businesses. If you have a customer in another business, it's what is a client worth to you? What is a customer worth to you on an average sale, right? So the same thing you want to factor in for your practice. Treat it like a business. Look at the numbers. So you have your PVA, your patient visit average for your visits. And then you have your case average, which is the total money you're going to collect on each patient that technically goes through your care, right? So
That you prescribe care for. Yeah, you're in the business of medicine. You're in the business of getting people better.
Yeah.
Is your business.
So that could be, for example, it could be $500 you make on average per patient, or it could be $10,000 on average that you see per patient. The way you figure that number out is you look at your total revenue generated for the week or the month. Most practices do it for the month, right?
Sure.
So you look at the total revenue for the month, and you divide that by your total new patients.
Total new patients.
And that's how you get your case average. Now, obviously, there's going to be the outliers with patients that continue to come in maybe for wellness or continuity care to some degree.
Yeah.
But again, we're looking at a number of data point that we can use as a reference, so then we can track progress.
Exactly. Ideally, you'd want to do that over a 6-month range or a year range, because you're going to have so many collections that will linger, or cases that wait to be closed, and sometimes your payment terms may be 30, 60, 90, or 120 days, or if you're personal injury or work comp, it could be 1 to 5 years.
Yeah, I was going to make sure.
So, to be as
sales
specific
cycle
as
be
possible, without having somebody on the phone or a call, I would pull your workman's comp or your personal injury patients out of that, if you want, depending on how big the practice is. If the practice doesn't have a lot of those patients, it's not going to be that influential. But you'll take your total collections that year divided by your total new patients.
Yeah.
Right, and that you'll find is a case average, and I've seen it as little as $600 and as high as $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah. So why is it? Here's the thing I wanted to get into. Why is that number so important? Why? How can you use that information?
So the easiest way to grow practice is to grow what you're already doing, or to optimize revenue centers in your practice that you're not taking advantage of, but you could be legally and ethically. So for a lot of doctors, it's reevaluations. I think they're notorious for reassessing a patient or talking to a patient, but they just don't take the extra step to document the visit and then bill the reevaluation.
Yeah, which is something that we were doing early
And
on.
it's, yeah, all of a sudden, if it's just to ease a conversation, if it's $50 and you see 20 new people a month, you should have 20 reevals at least that month, and then the following month you should have 20 new ones with 20 reevals plus the 20 reevals that are under care.
That's an extra $1,000 a month, and
Yeah,
so it ends
exactly.
up being an extra $12,000 a year.
All of a sudden it's quick, and then you can increase that profoundly depending on the different services that you add and ancillary services that you need examinations to order tests for. If you ordered a test, you should be billing a reevaluation to review the results with the patient, and if you're not, you shouldn't have ordered the test in the first place.
Yeah, and the reason why this specific part is so profound, and really like listen with intent here. I'd say a large amount of doctors, chiropractors, physical therapists are so anti-insurance because they think there's no money to be made. And in a lot of ways, yeah, insurance is getting challenging. Co-pays are going up, deductibles are going up, reimbursements are going down. But that being said, if you know how to bill and code correctly, if you know how to basically, you're already doing the work, if you know how to bill for it and get reimbursed for it, you can drastically change the amount of revenue and money that you're making, and then all of a sudden insurance is a good thing. And that's what something, my belief that insurance was basically the devil. It was evil. It was like avoid it at all costs. Everybody's teaching this in school, and then even with the coaches and consultants I worked with early on, they teach you that insurance is bad, avoid it like the plague, it's awful. And granted, some states are different, and some, it's better than others. But the reality is insurance is like playing chess. If you don't know how to play chess, it's not very fun. It's not very fun. It's hard. But if you figure out how to play the game, if you understand how insurance works, and you understand billing and coding, and where, basically you have to understand which questions to ask, and then once you figure out which questions to ask, there are tools and there's resources to be able to find those answers, and it's really, really powerful. You can very quickly, go from a case average of $500 to $1,500 by just billing for the work that you're already doing and all the time you're already spending with the patient, and you're delivering better care, better service, and you're getting paid for what you're worth. It's very, very powerful.
That process started, I'll never forget, there was a doctor that I was working with, and we were on a call, or scheduled for a call, and he was late to the call, and he called a few minutes after and apologized, and he said, sorry, I was adjusting a patient, and they had questions about something with her elbow. And I laughed, and I said, well, did you bill the visit? And he goes, well, yeah, I billed for the adjustment. And I said, well, what were you seeing him for? And he said, I was seeing him for back and neck pain. And I said, what did that have to do with her elbow? And he goes, well, they banged their elbow, and they thought they did something with the tendons or didn't know if they needed an x-ray. And I said, well, you realize that that's a new condition, and if you would have spent just a few minutes documenting what happened, I mean, I know you looked at it, right? And he goes, yeah, well, I looked at it, and I poked around, and he basically did an ortho neuro test in 2 seconds to him, but he didn't bill the visit. And it was just...
You already did the work. You did time.
And so many doctors explain tests and go over blood work and x-rays and all these things, and they don't ever just document what they're doing to generate a billable service.
Yeah.
So again, it's always within the boundaries of what the patient's needs, so don't misinterpret that, but it's, again, you're paid for your time.
Yeah.
Bill the service.
Yeah, and just document it appropriately, and make sure we're going to show you how to do that and how to document appropriately and where to get that information to make sure that you're meeting the criteria for the code to be billed, and so that way you don't have to worry about paybacks or fraud or anything like that.
A lot of times I talk to doctors too that spend more time with patients or do more rehab or want to do more therapy, for example, and they don't bill it because they're uncertain on how to document it, or they're afraid of an audit. And
afraid to bill
and all that stuff.
you
never be afraid of it. There's right and there's wrong, and it's really that easy. And if you're doing it the right way, you have zero fear.
Yeah.
Let them come in, hand them the keys, hug them, kiss them, and ask for a check on the way out.
Super powerful. That was another one of the two things that made that really big impact starting out with us. Was we were doing 6 visit check-ins, and so most practices, we do re-exams every 10 to 12 visits in the chiropractic and physical therapy space, and that's what we were doing. We were accustomed. That's what we were taught and trained on. But what we tried to do is we were really focused heavily on creating a better experience for our patients. And so what we decided to do is implement what's called a 6 visit check-in. So basically every 2 weeks we were sitting down, knee to knee with patients, checking in with them, seeing how they were doing, checking on progress, seeing if we need to make changes to their care, add in services, modalities, change the stretch, change the code, something. And what we didn't realize is that we could have billed for it the whole time. And the sad part is, and the angry part, you said doctors get mad, is we looked back at how many of those we had done in the last 6 months, and I don't even want to talk about how much money we left on the table.
It was a lot of money. It was a lot of lost revenue.
So,
and for clarity, it's not saying everybody should do reevals or check-ins every There's a lot of steps in between that lead to that, between ancillary services, review of whether it's DME or blood work or PT or therapy, or the different steps in between make that certainly possible and ethical.
Well, I mean, even just, most people think that to bill an exam code, you have to do a physical orthopedic exam, but the reality is if you actually look at the name of the code, it's called an E&M code, evaluation and management
of that.
So if you're making changes to the care, even without an exam, it's still billable time, it's billable service. You just have to document that you're changing care or you're not changing care, but you checked in with the patient, discussed the options,
what you're doing and why,
and managing their case, so you need to get paid for that time. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, therapeutic exercise is another one. A lot of doctors don't do many units of it. Or they might be even worse, they're doing the units and not billing it because they're uncertain or afraid of how to document it. If somebody asks for the notes or requests the notes, they're not sure what the notes should say. So we can certainly help with that. We can provide clarity sample notes, get you a compliance officer that's, certified in forensics.
Yeah, so we'll provide a link for that. So we have contact for that forensic officer, and so he's a forensic auditor. So he actually did some really cool stuff. He used to work for.
And I always call him a hitman. So if he comes to your office and you didn't invite him, you're probably going to go to prison.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. You don't want him knocking on your door, but if you invited him over, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we can definitely help make sure that your practice day is bulletproof and that you don't have to worry about getting in trouble or paybacks. So that way you're not afraid to bill that service or that code for the time that you're already spending with the patient.
Yeah.
And again, you're already going to make more money without adding anything new. You're just putting steps and protocols and systems in. And then, things like the 8-minute rule. Most, I don't know how many doctors I talk to that don't understand or know even that exists or that's a real thing.
15-minute rule.
So you need to make sure
your therapies and your modalities
So understand what the 8-minute rule is as far as when you can bill a full unit, half unit, and when you can piggyback units together for active units. We'll provide a resource down below for that too. You should see something down there. And it's something worth having. Print it out, put it in your office. If anything, you make sure that your staff and your CAs, your support, your techs, even your front desk, your billing, all of those, everybody in your practice should understand. If you're doing PT modalities or any kind of billing like that, you need to know the 8-minute rule. You
should have compliance meetings so your staff better understands that you're better insulated, because your staff can help protect you if something's not going right. Don't assume that everything's right, but if your staff can help see it, then they can help identify it. But your staff also can say, hey, what about this, or why don't we add this, or they'll be resourceful at times too. You'll make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the practice analysis, right? So we covered PVA, patient visit average. We covered case average. What about visit average? So like how much you collect per visit on average? So I find that to be an important stat. Like how?
A visit average. Well, it shows insights. So the way that we analyze this stat is actually how the same forensic auditor taught me to audit my practice. You can audit somebody else's practice, and it's the same methodology that the insurance carriers use, the software they use. Well, let's take it right there. So that's okay.
Edit. All right.
Were they too loud out there? Could you play that back to see if? I know somebody just came over the house, and I don't know if it's one of Sid's friends or not. But if it's going to be too loud, you hear them. Do you hear them? No.
Not really.
Okay. Oh, good. As long as you don't hear them.
I
know the doorbell you're going to hear twice with the dog, but
it's all good. Like I said, we're not in a studio. We're at your house, so
sure.
Again, it's kind of good though. It's transparent.
No, we can. I just don't want to hear kids or whatever screaming or this or that. I just go out there and say,
"You're a Nerf gun." We can just
shut up. Yeah.
Trying to make some money.
Right. So where are we at with how do we analyze?
So you learned from the forensic auditor.
Yeah, forensic auditor. What I started to learn, or the questions I started asking, and this is just with a doc just the other day, that he was frustrated that OrthoNet, if you don't know who they are, they're a carrier that limits a lot of visits. Nobody thinks to have the foresight to ask the question of how do you determine, or how do they determine medical necessity? So if you understand how somebody else that determines how your visits are necessary, you can now add to your documentation, right, exactly what's needed. So when the person that's reading your notes determines if it's necessary or not, has the language that they want in the note.
Asking for the answer to the question.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have the answers to the test is pretty easy. The test is pretty darn easy.
Yeah, it's an open book. It's an open book test. You just got to know how to ask the question. And,
so I've had doctors, that they're only authorized to get say 5 or 6 visits because their notes aren't great. So we had them simply call, and it's called an LCD, or call the person that's reading the notes and ask them, how is this decision determined? And they would say, well, it's by A, B, C, D. And so we said, well, all right, let's take that. Let's create a note with that language. So now you got it. And then all of a sudden that cap issue that they had with it was gone.
Yeah, the LCD requirements. We'll have we're going to do a whole thing on the LCD and what that is. And
yeah, but
important.
The reason you'd asked originally is why is the collections per visit so important? Why is it so urgent to know, or why is it
valuable?
The valuable, the information that it provides. You can see what a doctor does, and when you start to look at the doctor's CPT codes and you look at it over the course of a month or the course of a year, you can see right away how the doctor practices and their habits, which means now you can establish how close they are to the normal or above the normal for their area or their zip code or below, which tells you the amount the practice can grow because you know what the standard is for chiropractic, and that's available online. You can see what most of them do or don't do, right? The insurance carriers know, so if you're not aware of that, you can't afford to be that naive to think that they don't know. They see the billings of everybody.
It's another pattern again that you can very quickly look at, but it's also, you know, if you get audited, or if you get someone comes in and looks, that's one of the numbers they're going to look at is how much money you're billing, or how much you're billing for each visit, how much you're collecting, because they want to see if it's the same for every single patient. They know that you have a cookie cutter practice, and it's gonna raise some flags, and as a result, they're going to dive in and see what you're doing and probably find some holes in what you're doing.
How close to you are above normal, and again, if it's correct, don't have any fear of it. It doesn't matter if you're way outside of normal. If it's correct and accurate, the documentation's there, fire away.
Yeah. One of the reasons I find that number really important is, for me, and this is hopefully what you're trying. This is what you're here for. Is you want to treat your practice like a business as well as an efficient practice that you can grow and scale in a way that is efficient and is smart, basically. So look at it like this: if you have 100 patients a week that are getting adjusted or getting treated, and you're collecting $50 a visit per patient, you know you're going to hit a ceiling of about $5,000 where you can't really make more than that unless you see more patients. So then you have to, if you decide you want to make $10,000 a month, now you have to see twice as many patients. Well, instead of doing that, why not try to see if you can
work smarter?
What more value can you've already got people that are paying for your service and they're already spending money with you. There's a saying that it's much easier to get someone that's already bought from you to buy more from you than it is to go out and get a new customer, right? So if you can figure out, all right, well, what else can I sell them? What else can I serve them with? What other value can I provide them to help, basically, instead of me going out and getting a new patient and I have to spend the money there for the marketing, and then also I have to physically and manually treat more bodies, more people, increasing the volume there, why not figure out how you can get more revenue generated, more billable services, more value to the customer, and as a result you go from $50 a visit to $75. Now you've just increased your revenue significantly, but you didn't have to see any more new patients and you didn't have to spend any more money on marketing.
I had a doctor.
Super powerful.
Yeah, doctors say that I was looking at the billings and they didn't have anything for moist heat or ice packs, and they did therapy, and I asked him, do you use moist heat? He goes, well, everybody walking through the door gets moist heat or ice. And I said, well, why don't you bill it? He goes, well, it only pays $2. And I started laughing, and I looked at the number of visits, and I took that times $2, and it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I asked him, if I'm willing to hand you $2, would you ever get tired of just taking it? And he kind of laughed and said no. And I said, you're sending the claim anyway. Is it really that much trouble to
click the button?
Put it on. It's still $2. I know it's $2, but $2 times 20,000 is a lot. And you're already doing it. It's not like they don't need it. You're doing it anyway. You're just And he kind of laughed, and and needless to say, went up quite a bit pretty quick.
And so super, again, make sure you're taking notes on this. Go back and rewind, listen to that video again, because if you put two and two together, you realize that without marketing and getting any more new patients, without adding any new service centers in, without doing anything necessarily different on a grand scheme, if you look at your numbers and you have data points, you can make some really small changes and tweaks, usually that don't cost you anything, and you're probably going to get, it's probably things you're already doing, and you can start making more money, start generating the revenue, and then now this course, consulting, other things, buying more equipment, it all pays for itself very quickly.
The only ways to grow a practice is that you're limited. You either have to see more people, you have to offer services beyond what you're currently doing, right? You can charge more money, but if you're not cash, insurance, Cigna, Blue Cross, Medicare, last I checked, they pay what they pay, and you can't ask for more and just send and say, okay, here you go.
Yep.
So you have the opportunity to see more people. There's only so much time in the day. Expand the services you offer, right? Increase your collections per visit, which is in services again. You could argue. That's it, or more people.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, without that, that's it.
Awesome. Now, one of the other things I want to touch on, and like we'll probably create another content on this, which is that one of the reasons why it's so important to know what your case average is. We talked about this a little bit ago,
Sure.
before we started rolling. And so, what is a patient worth to you? If your case average is $1,000, that's really important to know, because if you're actively marketing, trying to grow your practice, you need to know how much money you can spend to acquire a new customer and still break even.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to know how much money you can spend. If you have, and this is another really important reason why you need to figure out how to find ways that you can get more revenue, more profit per patient that's already in place, because the more money that you can generate for the practice, more revenue, more profit, what it's going to do is it's going to leverage you and your ability to spend more on your marketing. Because if you have a patient, let's say each patient that comes into your practice is worth $500, that's not bad, right? So $500, but that means you can only spend up to $500 in your marketing to get one customer and break even, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you make some small changes and tweaks to your practice and how you're billing and your systems and services, and now your cases are worth $1,000, now you can spend twice as much in your marketing and still break even. And so there's a saying, and I think this might be even Chet Holmes or Dan Kennedy, that basically says the business that can spend the most money to acquire a customer wins. And it doesn't make sense, because you think, the goal is to spend as little as possible in your marketing to get as many patients as possible, or many customers. But if you have the ability to outspend your competition to get customers, so if you're in a market or in a region, or your practice is here, but you got 5 other docs around you that are all trying to get the same customers you are, and you're doing active marketing, if you can make more revenue and more profit for your patients than they can, as a result, you can spend more on your marketing, and as a result, you're going to take the market, right? So you're going to get the patients, because you can spend more to get them. If you're running, for example, Facebook ads or Google ads, if they can only spend $30 or $30 a day, because that's as much as they can spend in their marketing budget to break even for a new customer, new patient, but you can spend 60, your ads are going to run twice as long or be shown twice as often, and as a result, you're going to get twice the market.
You'll do better.
Super powerful. It's really important to know how much money patients are worth to you, so then you can know how much you can spend to get a new one. And then using that number, go backwards and look at your marketing budget, what you're spending on your direct mail and marketing, if you're using Facebook SEO optimization, if you're using Facebook ads and funnels, if you're using Google, whatever the case may be, referral networks, syndicates. If you're putting money out there to get new patients, you need to know what they're worth to you, so then you can know how you can.
Yeah, it's a power of leverage. So if you find a way to increase your visit average, say as little as $10 a visit, and you do that across the board, and we find an extra $3,000 or $4,000 in the practice, now we have $3,000 or $4,000 that we found instantly that you've got legally and ethically to apply towards marketing, and if that yields 10 new patients per event,
boom.
It just. Yeah, if you can't see how this stacks up, you probably ought to go watch TV. You're not going to get it.
It's a flywheel. You just keep. Yeah, you don't get it by now, but you just did that one time, right? So $10.
The power leverage. Your marketing, at least the criteria that I have that we've worked with Brandt, that Brandt does with all the practices, is you have to make a minimum of 3, hopefully a 5x return on every dollar that you spend. Is what we want to see. We want to see it consistently.
It's insanely powerful.
But then it's advertising, again, I know we're not necessarily covering marketing, but it's advertising multiple service centers. And a lot of doctors advertise themselves or a clinic, and nobody responds, nobody cares about your clinic's name or what they want is it's condition specific, and I know we can touch on that when we cover marketing as well, but the stats are critical. But what you do in each visit and analyzing all your codes or pulling your CPT codes out and looking at that is critical as well. And for the doctors that say, well, that doesn't matter for me, my practice is capped, we can't see past a certain visit range, I promise you there's more holes there than you realize are there.
Yeah, so go into that a little bit. So we were talking about case averaging, so we'll go back to talking about the practice analysis. So we're talking about conversions. Why do you look at that number?
So conversions are critical because doctors will historically tell me when we're working with them, when we first start, we're analyzing their statistics to find and to optimize the practice, I'll ask them, how many new patients do you see a month, or how many patients start care with you a month? And they'll say, 30. And we'll say, okay, well, you only build 25 new patient exams. How do you see 30 new patients and build 25 exams? And it's because they'll see them for a consult, and they won't become a patient, they'll lose them. Or they'll lose them with a conversion, or they had them come in on a free offer for something, or a lower grade offer, and didn't bill the exam, but their established exams don't add up to what they're telling me they think it is, so the math's not there.
Yeah.
And again, the beautiful thing about the math, as upsetting as it is it never lies and it's not wrong.
Yeah.
So it's going to show you what's real, which is oftentimes very upsetting.
Yeah, what says it? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, the math doesn't lie. So you want to find out what your conversion is for the practice, and there's not a right or wrong number, but there is something that should resonate in your gut as to how many people that come and see you should keep. Mm-hmm. You should keep for care.
Yeah.
We look at qualifications for care, qualified people for care. So if you have some form of marketing and people come in but they don't stay for care, a lot of times I found doctors are paying for consultants that will, in air quotes, help them increase their conversions. If somebody has an HMO and there's a doctor in that HMO and they can see that doctor for free, you've got to be really good for them to pay cash to see you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to speak for everybody else out there, but I can tell you right now, I'm not that good. That's an honest answer. I mean, if you can see another provider and your insurance covers it, why would you pay $30, $40 a visit in cash to see somebody else? And yeah. I'm sure there's doctors right now rubbing their hands together saying, I'm that good, and
yeah.
God bless you. But again,
and that's great, and it's good that you have that. But the reality is you can't think about it from your position as the doctor or the practitioner. You have to look at it from the condition and the standpoint from the patient.
Patient's honest, what they think, what they believe.
They're the ones open up their wallet, and they're the ones that need your care, that want your care, that need you're providing value to them. If as a consumer, if I have to pay for insurance, I'm forced to pay for insurance. I already have it, and Dr. A takes my insurance and Dr. B doesn't, it's a pretty easy decision to at least consider Dr. A first, even if it doesn't work out, I have a fallback, but I'm going to go to him first because it's logic.
And as a comment on that, for those of you right now that are out of insurance networks or don't take some insurance carriers because it only allows $30 or $40 a visit or it's capped, I get that, that's fine, I agree with that, but then you better really know your math so someone like Brandt can take that information and then target the demographic that you do want, to make sure we're not inundating marketing with those people with the care plans. Or we see doctors or offices, it's really common that they'll have that OrthoNet or those carriers that are capped visits, mm-hmm. and they'll treat all the patients as if they're capped, and they don't realize that maybe 40% of the practice is capped, but 60% isn't.
Yeah.
60% you do whatever you want to do to them, and they treat them the same way, which means we're losing $60 a visit, most commonly, per head, times 40, 50, 60, 100 a week, times a month, times a year, and all of a sudden now it's in the deep six figures, and it became an aha moment quick.
Yeah. That was that's your replacement associate that you just covered his salary with, that you could.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're bleeding.
Or what your associate is doing with care compared to you.
Yeah.
Don't assume it's all the same. Look at what your associate does. Pull files and look. Audit the associate.
That was the ones I was going to get to, which was if you're looking at your conversions and you're paying attention to those numbers, you factor in the new patients that came in, your conversions. You should, again, we're looking at data points that we can plot, so then we can measure and be objective over time. Because if let's say you're the doctor, you're running the show right now, and as you scale and grow, you're bringing in associates. So we bring an associate doctor to work underneath us, and then the goal is to transition, right, to set up to where now we can work on the business instead of in the business. If you have your numbers for your conversions and you know you were doing it right, and then you bring in an associate, he needs to match what you were doing, otherwise you're going to start losing more money. So you got to know what your rates were and your conversion rates were, so then you can have the expectation of a standard for them and make sure you train them up. Because if I'm converting 25 out of 30 patients, but then I bring in an associate and he's only converting 20 out of 30 on average, there's something wrong, and I need to work on training him. I need to bring his skill set up, or figure out where the other hole is. If you're bringing in a new staff member, a new front mm-hmm. desk, there's a lot of turnover in this industry. You've got to make sure you have metrics in place, so that way as you go through turnover and you get things kind of dialed in, you want to make sure that whoever you're replacing staff with, if someone quits or you fire someone, whatever the case may be, you got to be able to have a standard to bring them into and let them know, here's the standard, here's the number, this is what you're expected to meet, right?
Yeah.
It makes their job easier, to take stress off them, it's going to help your staff, and it gives you peace of mind knowing, hey, here's where we need to get back to, right? Really cool stuff. So conversions, and then new patients. Obviously, that's kind of a
Yeah, we should kind of touch on the cost of new patients and what that is, and which helps with your marketing budget and all that combined is going to teach it. That's literally gives us a roadmap on how to grow. But that's how you can offer a guarantee, which anybody that you're paying to grow your practice should offer you. And if they can't, I don't know why you pay them and keep them. But again, with that as a map, that's how you can offer a guarantee, because I know it is when we started. And if it's not going up, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's really that simple.
Yeah.
It's either going up or it isn't.
Got to have practice analysis. So hopefully you got through everything we kind of went through. Is there anything else that you wanted to add into that that you look at from the
No, I think for the docs that are probably more advanced, that already know what all that is and measure it now, then I'd challenge them to say call with those stats and let's look at it, and I'll bet you anything we'll find something that you can analyze it that's missed, and it's a different set of eyes.
Yeah, so if you want to set up a free strategy call to where we can kind of go through the numbers with you, there's probably going to be a button on the page somewhere, or a calendar you can use, and we'll set that time up, and either myself or Dr. Todd will go through and we'll look at those numbers, those metrics with you, and figure out, if you haven't figured out on your own with the other modules and the other courses that are coming, we'll be able to kind of manually go through it with you and see if we can find where the leak is, where the problem is.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very, very powerful stuff.
Or where to grow it.
Yeah. Was there anything else in that?
I don't think so. Not.
Because that first, this is that first step, and no, it's the second step. The first thing, obviously, you got to set the stake, you got to have something to move towards, and then the practice analysis. This is your blueprint. This is where we're getting a foundation.
Where we want to be.
Yep.
Yep. Deciding who you are, how we're going to get there.
And so once you get these pieces done, really, growing your practice, integrating it, stabilizing it, automating it, becomes a lot easier if you get these two things in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, thanks for your time. Get that work done. Like do the homework, do the practice analysis, and then hold yourself accountable. Set it to where you're doing it consistently, right? So once a month, once a quarter, once a year, kind of go back, and it allows you to see where you're growing each year. If you change marketing, let's say you go from one marketer to another, it allows you to make better decisions, because if you feel like your marketing isn't working, it doesn't matter what you feel. You need to look at your numbers and see how effective it is. What are the quality? You work with marketer A and he's bringing in 100 leads a month. That sounds great. And then you work with marketer B and he's only bringing you 30 leads a month, and you're like, oh crap, this guy is not nearly as good. But the reality is marketer A was bringing you 100 leads, but only 5 of those patients were converting to care, and they were dropping off. But marketer B is bringing in 30 leads, 25 are converting, and they're staying with you. Which one's better, right? So initially, your feel is the the one that brings in the most leads or is doing better for you. But the reality is you gotta make the decisions off your numbers.
Remember, how you feel doesn't matter.
Awesome, very cool. All right, so we'll see you in the next video, and that's it for now. See you guys.
Oh, put it on the line.
Yeah, that was good. I like that one.
All right.